why most businesses collapse after year 3 and how to avoid it. Year 1 is about hustle. You're excited, motivated, and you can outwork your problems. Year 2, you start to see cracks, systems you didn't build, people you didn't hire correctly, and clients you didn't keep. Year 3, that's when the wheels fall off for most businesses. Here's why. They confuse activity with progress. They think being busy means they're building a company. But busyness without structure is chaos, and chaos doesn't scale. So why do businesses collapse after year 3? It's not because the market is bad. It's not because competition is too tough. It's because founders fail to evolve from doer to builder. There are 4 things you must get right if you want to break through year 3. First, systems beat effort. You cannot outwork broken processes forever. By year 3, if you don't have repeatable systems for sales, delivery, and operations, you'll drown in your own success. Second, hire for roles, not tasks. Early on, you hire bodies to just help. By year 3, if you don't hire people who can own outcomes, you become the bottleneck and the business collapses under your control freak tendencies. Third, customer retention is king. Most businesses collapse not because they can't find customers, but because they can't keep them. If your product or service doesn't consistently deliver value, you'll always be chasing new sales while the old ones walk out the door. Fourth, founders must level up. The business cannot outgrow you. If you're still the same operator you were in year 1, your business will stall. The skills that got you here, grit, hustle, grind, won't get you there. You need leadership, strategy, and discipline. Year 3 is where most businesses die. But it's also where the real companies are born. If you choose to build systems, empower people, protect your customers, and level up yourself, you won't just survive year 3, you'll dominate the years after. Most entrepreneurs survive the first couple of years because of pure effort. They wake up early, go to bed late, and they are willing to do everything themselves. And in the beginning, that worked. That's why year 1 and year 2 look like progress. You're working harder than ever. You're making sales, you're delivering, and you're telling yourself, I'll just grind harder. But here's the reality. Effort is a short-term solution. Hustle will carry you through the start, but hustle will kill you by year 3. Because there's a ceiling to how much one person can push. There's no ceiling to how well systems can scale. When you don't build systems, your business runs on adrenaline. Every customer issue is an emergency. Every sale feels like a fight. Every day feels chaotic because you're managing everything in your head. And what happens is by the time you hit year 3, you're exhausted. You've been running a business on pure hustle, and you've created something that only works if you're constantly grinding inside of it. The problem, that's not a business, that's a job you built for yourself, and most people burn out right there. The reason systems matter is simple. A system creates consistency. If you don't have a process for how sales calls are run, every salesperson makes it up as they go. If you don't have a process for how clients are onboarded, every customer gets a different experience. If you don't have a process for how money is tracked, you're one bad month away from not knowing if you're profitable. The absence of systems means everything depends on you being present, and that is the fastest way to cap your business. Most entrepreneurs resist building systems because it feels slower. You tell yourself, it's faster if I just do it myself. And in the short term, you're right. Writing down the steps, training someone, documenting how things should work, that takes time. But the truth is, skipping that step keeps you on a treadmill. You run fast, but you stay in the same place. When you invest in systems, you trade a little bit of speed today for a lot of scale tomorrow. It feels boring, it feels tedious, but it's what separates people who survive year 3 from people who don't. Think about restaurants. A single mom and pop shop might survive with hustle. The owner is cooking, cleaning, serving, managing inventory, doing payroll, but that restaurant will never scale because it's built on that owner's personal effort. Now compare that to a franchise. A McDonald's doesn't rely on hustle, it relies on systems. Every burger is made the same way. Every shift has the same checklist. The business works because the system works, not because the owner is hustling harder than everyone else. That's the difference. Hustle makes you money. Systems make you money forever. Another reason most entrepreneurs fail to build systems is ego. You think nobody can do it as well as you, and you're right, they won't at first. But if you're unwilling to let go, to document what works, to train and retrain, you'll never free yourself from being the operator. Systems allow you to extract knowledge out of your head and make it usable by other people. If you refuse to do that, you've guaranteed your business dies when your energy runs out. And by year 3, for most people, it runs out. When you do build systems, something amazing happens. You start to predict outcomes. Sales calls convert at a steady percentage. Customers onboard smoothly. Employees know how to win without you standing over their shoulder. And because you can predict outcomes, you can improve outcomes. You can optimize. You can scale. Without systems, you're just reacting to fires. With systems, you're designing the future of your business. And let's be clear, building systems doesn't mean building complicated operations manuals. Nobody reads. A system can be as simple as a checklist, a template, a script, or a repeatable workflow. It's anything that makes results less dependent on memory and hustle, and more dependent on structure. It's not about bureaucracy. It's about making success easier to repeat. So if you want to avoid collapsing after year 3, stop worshiping hustle and start respecting systems. Ask yourself, if I stopped working tomorrow, would this process still happen the way it should? If the answer is no, you don't have a business, you have a hustle. Your job as a founder is to take the things you do well and turn them into playbooks that other people can run. That's how you move from effort to efficiency. The hard truth is that your grind isn't special. Everyone can hustle. The market doesn't reward who works the hardest. It rewards who builds the machine that keeps working when they don't. Systems beat hustle, always. And the sooner you learn that, the sooner you'll build a business that lasts beyond year 3. Most founders sabotage their own growth because of how they hire. In the beginning, it's easy to justify. You're drowning, so you look for a quick fix. You say, I just need someone to help me with the small stuff. You bring in an assistant, a part-timer, maybe even a friend, and you hand them tasks, not outcomes, not ownership, just tasks. And that works when the business is small. But by year 3, it's the reason most companies collapse. Because you didn't build a team, you built a group of people waiting for you to tell them what to do. When you hire task doers, you stay the bottleneck. Every decision flows back through you. Every question comes to your desk. Every problem requires your input. And now you're managing grown adults like they're children because you never made it clear that their job was to deliver results, not just complete assignments. That bottleneck is what chokes most businesses out. It's not the market. It's not the competition. It's the founder's refusal to hire people who can own an outcome and free them up to focus on bigger things. The shift from tasks to ownership is uncomfortable for most entrepreneurs because it requires letting go of control. When you start, you are the business. You sell, you deliver, you market, you manage the books. You think nobody else can do it like you, and you're right, they can't. But here's the problem. If nobody else can ever do it, your business will never grow beyond your personal capacity. And by year 3, your personal capacity hits a wall. That's when entrepreneurs burn out and businesses crumble. Hiring for ownership means you hire someone to own sales, not just make calls. You hire someone to own marketing, not just run ads. You hire someone to own customer success, not just answer emails. You're no longer looking for a set of hands. You're looking for a brain that can take responsibility for results. That means they can think, they can solve problems, and they can tell you what needs to be done instead of you telling them. The truth is most founders hire too cheap and too fast. You convince yourself it's smarter to save money, so you hire low-skill people and expect them to think like high-skill operators. That never works. You don't get ownership at minimum wage. Ownership requires investing in people who have the experience and ability to deliver. If you're not willing to pay for that, then don't be surprised when you're still the one making every decision. And here's the kicker. Task doers will always make more work for you, not less. Because when you hand them tasks, they hand you questions. They need clarification. They need feedback. They need direction. You become their manager instead of their leader. But when you hire for ownership, the relationship flips. They bring you solutions, not problems. They report on outcomes, not activities. They reduce your workload instead of multiplying it. This is also where ego kills founders. You want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to believe nobody can figure it out better than you. But if that's true, your business is capped. The only way to scale is to hire people who are smarter than you in their lane, who can run their department without your constant interference. If you're scared to hire people better than you, then you've chosen to stay small. And staying small almost always means dying by year 3. When you do hire for ownership, you get leverage. One person who owns a function is worth 10 people who just do tasks because the owner creates systems, builds processes, trains others, and delivers consistent results without you having to micromanage. That's how businesses grow past the founder. That's how companies scale from chaos to stability. And that's how you avoid collapsing once the hustle stops working. Founders who refuse to make this shift end up with businesses that look busy but go nowhere. They're surrounded by people, but all the weight is still on their shoulders. They confuse headcount with progress. They brag about how many employees they have, but the truth is, if every one of those employees is waiting on you, you don't have a team. You have a daycare. And daycares don't scale. So if you want to survive past year 3, you need to change the way you hire. Stop asking, who can help me do this? And start asking, who can own this so I never have to think about it again? That's the litmus test. If the person you're hiring can't give you confidence that they'll deliver results without constant hand-holding, don't hire them. If they can, then you just bought yourself leverage, freedom, and a shot at building something real. The founder who keeps hiring for tasks will always be trapped in their own business. The founder who hires for ownership creates a team that drives results without them. And that's the difference between the businesses that collapse after 3 years and the ones that keep growing. You either stay the bottleneck or you build people who remove it. The choice is yours. Most businesses obsess over new customers. It feels good to close a deal. It feels exciting to see revenue spike from a fresh client. And in the early days, that's what keeps you alive. You're chasing growth, you're celebrating every new sale, and you convince yourself that as long as money is coming in, you're building something strong. But by year 3, this obsession with acquisition kills more companies than anything else because most of them don't have a customer problem. They have a retention problem. They can sell, but they can't keep. And if you can't keep, you can't compound. Here's the truth. New sales will not save you if customers are walking out the back door just as fast as they walk in the front. You can run ads, hire more sales reps, throw money at marketing, and for a little while, it'll look like growth. But eventually the math catches up. Churn eats momentum alive. If half the people you sell to leave after a few months, you're pouring water into a leaky bucket. And founders hit year 3 realizing they've built a treadmill instead of a business. They're running harder, spending more, hiring more, and still staying in the same place because nobody's staying long enough to create stability. Customer retention is the ultimate measure of whether your product or service actually works. Because here's the thing, people don't leave if they're getting what they came for. If they're receiving value, they'll keep paying, they'll keep coming back, and they'll tell other people about you. If they're leaving, it's because you failed to deliver, you overpromised, or you didn't pay attention once they signed the contract. It's not a marketing problem. It's not a sales problem. It's a value problem. And most businesses don't want to face that. Founders love selling because it feels like control. You can pick up the phone, close a deal, and feel productive. Retention feels less exciting. It's slower. It's behind the scenes. It requires discipline. But it's also the difference between building a hustle and building a real business. Companies that survive year 3 are the ones that prioritize keeping their customers just as much as getting them. Think about it. What's more powerful, closing 10 new clients a month who leave in 6 months or closing 5 new clients a month who stay for 3 years? It's not even close. The second business wins every time. Retention compound. Each year, your revenue stacks, your referrals multiply, and your marketing costs go down because your existing customers become your best salespeople. The first business, they stay stuck in acquisition mode forever, constantly replacing the revenue they lost, never building anything stable. Retention is also where most founders' ego gets exposed. You want to believe your product is amazing. You want to tell yourself that if people leave, it's because they weren't a good fit, or they didn't understand, or they didn't have the money. That's the easy excuse. The hard truth is, if people aren't staying, your product isn't delivering, period. The market doesn't care about your feelings, it cares about outcomes. Retention forces you to be brutally honest about whether or not you're actually solving problems for your customer. And solving those problems doesn't stop at delivery. Retention is about the entire customer journey. It's about onboarding them correctly so they feel confident. It's about checking in, communicating, and making sure they're getting results. It's about making them feel valued, not forgotten after the sale is closed. Too many businesses treat customers like trophies, celebrate when they sign, ignore them after. That's why they leave. The irony is retention is almost always cheaper than acquisition. It costs less to keep a customer than to get a new one. But most founders would rather chase shiny new leads than do the boring work of improving customer experience. They'd rather spend 10 grand on ads than spend 10 hours fixing their onboarding process. And that decision is exactly why they collapse after year 3. They spend themselves into oblivion chasing new customers because they never built a business that people wanted to stick with. So how do you fix retention? You focus on value, deliver what you promise, and then track outcomes, not just activity. Ask your customers why they'd leave and fix those reasons before they happen. Create systems that make their life easier. Don't assume because they paid once, they'll keep paying. You have to earn it every month, every interaction. Businesses that prioritize retention build loyalty, and loyalty buys you stability. Stability buys you time. Time buys you scale. That's why the most successful companies don't just measure sales, they measure lifetime value, repeat purchase rate, churn. They know retention is the scoreboard for whether they're truly building something worth paying for long term. If you want to survive year 3, stop bragging about how many new customers you signed last month and start asking how many you kept, because anyone can sell. If you can deliver, the ones that deliver are the ones that win. Retention is king. Without it, you don't have a business. You have a revolving door. And revolving doors don't last. Most businesses don't collapse after year 3 because of the market or competition or luck. They collapse because the founder refuses to grow. The truth is simple. Your business cannot outgrow. You can't become more disciplined, more strategic, or more capable than you are willing to become. And by year 3, that gap between who you are and who you need to be gets exposed. In year one, you can win with grit. You can push through with energy, long hours, and sheer willpower. In year two, you can still survive on hustle. You're figuring things out, and your work ethic covers most of your mistakes. But by year three, the game changes. You can't just outwork your problems anymore. The complexity grows faster than your energy can keep up. You're no longer running a hustle. You're running a company, and that requires a different version of you. The skills that got you here won't get you there. Being scrappy and relentless got you started. But scaling requires discipline, leadership, and strategy. Most founders don't make that shift. They're stuck in the identity of the operator. They're addicted to being busy. They want to feel needed. So they keep inserting themselves into every decision, every conversation, every problem. They don't realize that the very thing that made them successful at the beginning is the same thing holding them back from breaking through. The founder who refuses to level up stays a doer instead of becoming a builder. They're still answering customer emails at midnight, still micromanaging their team, still making every decision alone. And eventually they burn out because the company can't grow past their personal capacity. That's why most companies die by year three. The founder is still acting like it's year one. Leveling up means changing your role. Your job is no longer to do everything. It's to make sure everything gets done without you. That requires systems, people, and vision. And most importantly, it requires you to let go of control. You have to stop being the technician and start being the leader. You have to stop asking, how can I do this? And start asking, who can I empower to own this? That's not easy because it forces you to face your ego. It forces you to admit you're not the best at everything. It forces you to trust others, but that's the price of growth. It also means developing entirely new skills. If you've only learned how to sell and deliver, you now need to learn how to recruit, lead, and manage. You need to understand finances, not just revenue. You need to build culture, not just grind hours. You need to create clarity for your team, not just clarity for yourself. This is where most founders quit because the work changes. It's not exciting hustle anymore. It's uncomfortable growth, learning things you've never done, admitting when you're wrong, and building habits that don't give you immediate dopamine hits. But it's also what separates the real CEOs from the hustlers who burn out. Think about it like fitness. If you're a beginner, you can get results just by showing up and sweating. You can eat a little better, lift a little weight, and you'll see progress. But at some point that stops working. Keep progressing. You need structure. You need programming. You need to dial in your nutrition. You can't just try harder. You have to get smarter. Business is the same way. Year 1 and 2 are about showing up and working. Year 3 and beyond are about structure, discipline, and precision. And if you're unwilling to evolve, you plateau or worse, decline. Another part of leveling up is your mindset around responsibility. Early on, you can blame circumstances. You can blame being new, not having money, not having connections. But by year 3, those excuses don't hold weight. If your business is stuck, it's because you are stuck. If your people aren't performing, it's because you haven't learned how to lead them. If your product isn't retaining customers, it's because you haven't taken the time to improve it. Everything is your responsibility. Leveling up means owning that without excuses. And here's the thing, the ceiling you create by not growing doesn't just hurt you. It hurts your team, your customers, and your company. People join your business expecting it to go somewhere. If you don't level up, they hit the same ceiling you do. The best people leave because they outgrow you. Customers leave because the company stalls. Opportunities slip away because you weren't prepared to rise to them. You don't just fail yourself, you fail everyone relying on you. The founders who survive past year 3 are the ones who are relentless about their own growth. They read, they learn, they hire mentors, they surround themselves with people who challenge them. They don't cling to the identity of being the hardest worker. They build the identity of being the most adaptable learner. They shift from operator to owner, from doer to leader, from hustler to builder. And because of that, their businesses keep growing long after the initial hustle fade. If you want to survive past year 3, stop asking what more you can do and start asking who you need to become. Because businesses don't outgrow their founders. They collapse at the limit of the founder's growth. The choice is simple: evolve or watch your business die with the old version of you.